Good afternoon, folks. Welcome to this early afternoon live broadcast. A little bit of a test, see what kind of an audience there is out there who've, like me, got nothing better to do but think about F-18 Hornets of an afternoon on a Thursday. So welcome. There's a nice bunch of people joining the chat. Do join the chat if you haven't done in the past. It's a nice, friendly audience. Nice to have a conversation with like-minded aviation enthusiasts. I see a good question from Carl already about the difference between the Hornet and the Super Hornet. We'll touch on that through this. So all of it's based on our archive of air show action that we've recorded over the last 30 odd years. We'll go first of all, I'll show you a few of those clips you'd have seen in the intro there. In fact, I'll leave that until we get stuck in. We'll go right the way back to 1992, so the sort of plain vanilla OG Hornet of the US Navy displaying at Woodford very shortly, and bring it through. It's mostly legacy Hornets, so not Super Hornets that we've covered over the years, but we will end with a really nice Boeing demonstration of a Super Hornet. So to answer the question, Carl, an upgraded aircraft, extra fuel, extra weapons capability, and bit of low observability, low radar cross-section, low radar cross-section, things like that, incorporated in the Super Hornet design. I'm no voice of wisdom on these things. I've got a couple of nice books here. I did a little bit of reading up on the Hornet. All of my aviation's knowledge based on standing in a field at air shows, listening to more educated air show commentators talking about these wonderful aeroplanes. But what we do focus on at Planes TV, obviously, is recording the action, the airshow action, as clearly as we can do. And I'm going to share some of that with you now. So whilst we let people filter in, I'll play a little bit right back from the archive. So this is an aircraft from USS Saratoga displaying at Woodford in 1992. As I say, this would have been a year after Gulf War. So, and the US Navy did lose an aircraft, an F-18 in the Gulf War. So it's, very active aircraft, just seen frontline military service, and of its time. The material is of its time too, so not quite the quality that we produce these days, but nice to reflect back to some of the interesting ways that aircraft were displayed back in 1992.
From the USS Saratoga is Lieutenant Commander Digger Conaway, flying this FA-18 Hornet of Fighter Attack Squadron 83. The aircraft has become a bestseller and is currently in service with Australia, Canada, Kuwait, Spain, as well as the United States Navy and United States Marine Corps. This versatile aircraft distinguished itself both as a fighter and as an attack aircraft in the Gulf conflict. Digger is also a Top Gun graduate and flew the Hornet in the Gulf conflict.
like I say, a pretty spectacular display there. Certainly a takeoff. Surprised himself a little bit with that one. I think it's a clip I've shared in the past, but every time I spot it, I think, yeah, I've got to share that one. I'll share with you another bit of archive content in a moment. This from 1994, a Mildenhall show, a Canadian aircraft, and it's nice time to mention the fact I'm calling all of these aircraft F-18s and Hornets at that. Of course, the Canadians going for CF-188. I think the Spanish call them EF-15s, or no, that's not right, is it? CL something? I don't know. But F-18 Hornet, bit of a catch-all term for all of the aircraft that I'm sharing with you today. And I've tried to do a bit of a cross-section of the operators of the type. So we've had US Navy, the sort of original customer, if you like, and yeah, me too, Angus, saying that he loves the legacy Hornet displays, each country with their own style, and they really do as well. And the Swiss and the Finns in particular really throw them about. We'll see both of those in the course of this. The Finnish display from Leeuwarden in 2014, I think. The Finnish display, that is. And then the Swiss will come right up to date with some displays at Fairford this year. But I couldn't resist dipping into aircraft we've seen overseas, because we see the flares. So the Finnish display incorporating lots of flares. And that's always pretty spectacular to see. Winding the clock back then, Mildenhall, 1994. And this starts with a really nice, seems silly, but aircraft taxiing out. But Mildenhall, a lovely venue, really nice venue for getting it really up close and personal with the aircraft as they taxi out, as you'll see from this first clip.
Another widely sold fighter and attack aircraft of American origin is the F-18 Hornet. This from the Canadian Air Force at F-894. In Canadian service, it is actually designated the CF-188 and the name Hornet not used. Designed for shipboard use and ordered for US Navy and Marine Corps, the Hornet has become another Navy type adopted by land forces. Australia and Spain use them too. During this high alpha pass, you can clearly see the fake cockpit painted underneath, a measure designed to confuse opponents in dogfights.
Anyone guess the... sorry, I keep listening to myself back and it's quite awkward. Guess the type idling in the background there. Anyone in the chat that can identify the... quite distinctive jet noise in the background there, do let me know in the chat. No prizes, but lots of respect from me. That and the previous clip, both clips from the dim and distant past, and the quality maybe not as good as we produce these days, but really nice to look back at the nostalgia of those shows. Not enough Canada action there though for me, so I'm going to share with you in a moment a really nice display and display scheme from Royal International Air Tattoo 2018, the Canadians coming over for the RAF's 100th anniversary. So I should say that both of those programs, and indeed this re-up one coming up, all available on the on-demand streaming service at watch.planestv.com. If you've never tried that before, I have just re-enabled the trial functionality on that, so you can start a 7-day trial. We sort of disable that during the live broadcast season. But that's now available again, so you can head there and take a look at some of that archive action if you should desire. And Angus had it already. So saying, the Rolls-Royce Pegasus engine in the background there, the Harrier. Yeah, it's the first thing that stuck out to me with that clip as well. And that canopy painted on the underside of the F-18. That's how a Hornet should look in my mind. I suppose growing up in the 90s, that's just a part of a paint scheme that I certainly remember it on the Canadians. I'm trying to think if any of the others. It must have been on the US aircraft for me to have been reminded of that. I'm not sure. So we've had US, we've had Canada. We're going to have one more Canadian. We are then going to go into some of the other operators mentioned in that, the land-based forces. So the Finnish the Finns, the Swiss, and we'll finish up on the Spanish aircraft. Those last two displaying at Air Tattoo this year. Some really nice material there, but also really nice material in 2018. Some really bright conditions. I had all the good cameras out, so enjoy this from the very nicely painted Canadian CF188. Can't think of a letter on the end, but let's go with F-18 Hornet, shall we?
Huge efforts were made by many air arms to help celebrate the RAF centenary, none more so than the Royal Canadian Air Force delegation, who were awarded the Chief Executive Trophy for an outstanding contribution to the show. That contribution, of course, included the CF-18 solo demonstration flown by Captain Stefan Porteous.
So my name is Captain Stefan Porteous. My call sign is Porcelain, and I'm Canada's 2018 CF-18 demo pilot. I initially got into aviation when I was 12 years old. I joined the Royal Canadian Air Cadet program based out of Comox with 386 Squadron Royal Canadian Air Cadets. And then I was lucky enough to be awarded the flying scholarships for gliding when I was 16 years old, and when I was 17 I got my private license on Cessnas.
Watch now as Porcelain displays the CF-18's exceptional rolling capabilities. From the left, the Quad 270 roll. Get your cameras ready as Porcelain presents the NORAD 60 jet during the topside pass.
We have two different Hornet models. We only fly the F-18 Hornet as our fighter jet. We have the A model and the B model. The A model, which is a single seat. We also have the B model, like I mentioned, which is a two-seat version. The only difference between the two is that you lose a little bit of gas in the B model. We've had these in service since the early 80s, and we have had them under a constant upgrade system. So every couple of years they undergo a major upgrade to make sure that we're still at the leading edge of the fight.
In order to get behind an enemy into what fighter pilots call the control zone, a pilot must occasionally slow down. The aircraft that can fly the slowest will gain the advantage. Captain Porteous will now demonstrate the high angle of attack capability of the Hornet at minimum speed.
It's an honor to fly this airplane behind me. I'm lucky enough that they give me the sports car version. So what I mean by that is no tanks, no pylons, no weapons on it. So it's very light, it's very agile, and I get that pure 32,000 pounds of thrust with the afterburner.
Porcelain's coming by for one final pass, and he's going to give us all a wave. So make sure everyone down here on the ground, we want to see you waving back because he will be watching.
It's a huge honor for me to have been selected as the 2018 pilot, especially because we're here performing at Yeovilton and Riyadh. It's one of the highlights of the season for sure. We brought over 2 airplanes across the pond with one of our tankers, so it's obviously a massive event. And to be able to celebrate 100 years with the RAF is, of course, really, really important because we have some very, very cool ties to the RAF, being the RCAF.
CF-18 also took home the award for Best Livery at the show, and it's easy to see why.
Some really nice material there, I hope you agree. And yeah, what a scheme. And interesting to see there on final approach on landing, the sort of full wing length flaps, the ailerons being used to create maximum lift and reduce that stall speed for a carrier-borne aircraft, naval aircraft. Chris Jansen, lovely to see you in the chat and talking about the Hornet being the first time you'd seen flares used at a show. And yeah, that's something that we'll see in a moment with the Finnish aircraft displaying at Leeuwarden, I think, 2014. That's from a program called European Airshows 2014 that Chris in the chat supplied some material for, I think, some Bulgarian stuff and probably a couple of other shows as well. And nice to see Canuck Flyer in the chat there as well, talking about the Royal Canadian Air Force 100th anniversary coming up in 2024. So hoping that the Air Force pulls out the stops there. I'm sure they will, and that will be an interesting one. That's sort of got my attention a little bit. We quite need to be doing some overseas shows, something I'm trying to do more of next year. And 2024, Canada on the coming up into my radar screen, thinking maybe that will be a good idea. So speaking of those flare action, then let's head to Leeuwarden 2014. This clip from European Air Shows. So that's a roundup of all the European shows that we attended in that year. Quite short clips from each show, so we don't spend a lot of time on each act. That's something I'd like to revisit over the winter, is pulling out longer sequences from some of these displays, because they do deserve it. But just a couple of minutes then of the Finnish F-18 display at Leeuwarden in 2014.
A very welcome participant from the Finnish Air Force here, their always impressive F-18C Hornet solo display. That at Leeuwarden, provided by a pilot from Fighter Squadron 31 at Risala. And his firing off of numerous flares certainly brightened up the rather dull Dutch sky.
Yeah, and someone just saying in the chat there that the Blue Angels, I haven't got a Blue Angels clip prepared. Now, we've definitely seen the Blue Angels team, of course, flying the Legacy F-18. Are they still flying the Legacy F-18? Oh, I may have misspoken there. Guys in the chat can correct me if I'm wrong. I should really try and dig out a clip. So I'll try and find a clip in the last 10 minutes. It will be an old one, so probably not recorded. I can remember seeing the Blue Angels in the late 90s, probably 99. I'm trying to think where now. Gosh, that's going to struggle. But if I can manage to, I'll try and dig out a clip of the Blue Angels to end on. It'd be nice to finish on a display team. That was Lane saying that the Blue Angels at Finningley blew their mind. Finningley, eh? Doncaster, Sheffield Airport no longer. Finningley Airport no longer, apparently. Sad times at the moment for that airport. So while I go and see if I can dig out a little bit of Blue Angels material to complete this on, I'm going to play you a little bit of material that I was messing about with last week. You may have spotted a little clip of it at the beginning of the live stream we did last Thursday evening. No real focus on a theme on that one, but did play a little bit of this material from Royal International Air Tattoo 2022, this year's display. It's an edit of the sort of combination display of the Swiss F-18 with the PC-7 team, and it's part of the program that we're editing for our streaming service. So a 3-hour long program of all the very best bits and pieces from Air Tattoo this year, including a little bit of in-cockpit action and all the rest. Let's take a look then at the Swiss F-18 while I go and scratch my head about where we filmed the Blue Angels.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, this is what we call a Swiss precision. And now within a few seconds the F-18 will catch up and they will come back for another flyby. It is quite difficult to fly a formation like this because the speed range of the PC-7 and the F-18 is completely different. The F-18 is at rather slow speed and the PC-7 have to fly not too fast, otherwise the planes on the outside won't be able to stay in the formation. Too fast, otherwise the planes on the outside won't be able to stay in the formation. Now it's getting exciting. PC-17 landing gear extended, landing lights are on and flaps extended, and the F-18 will approach from the right side for the crossing. Captain Yannick Zanata, or his nickname Fancy, starts his display with a so-called square loop. And now 60 degrees off Immelmann. During his display, he normally reaches a maximum altitude of 6,000 feet, and he goes down to 200 feet above ground. Another half a square loop, and he will show us a pirouette to the left. So normally in the F-18 you have acceleration of maximum plus 7.5 Gs or minus 2 Gs, and he shows us now another maneuver. We'll push over the nose again towards the ground. And I'm sure you feel the massive power of this aircraft. Almost all the time he's flying with afterburner. He pulled up now for another half square loop and going down in a peerage to the right side. Yes, thank you very much, Funsi, the F-18 from the Swiss Hornet display team. And
really good illustration there of some of the sort of velocity vectoring and the power of the elevators, if you like, to really pull the nose round on the F-18. Something that makes it surely a very capable sort of close-in fighter, but also spectacular airshow performer, which is obviously our bread and butter and where we see the aircraft in action. So a nice display there, lovely combination with the PC7 team at the beginning. That material from Royal International Air Tattoo 2022. Just going to hop on the chat. I did spot a comment there. Oh yes, so talking about the Blue Angels, which I've failed miserably to go and find a clip of. I think probably it would have been 97 that my old man Adrian would have covered them at El Toro, maybe, somewhere like that. That needs rectifying. We need a bit of Blue Angels action on the streaming service. If I haven't got access to it now, it means we haven't yet gone and captured the tape. These actually a little bit later than 97, although we would have been shooting on mini DV at that point, not sure. But the winter project is always to dig out a few more tapes and capture it for the streaming service at watch.plainstv.com, as I mentioned earlier. There's a free trial available now on that service for 7 days access to our back catalogue of programmes, which will very shortly, include Royal International Air Tattoo 2022, our sort of highlights programme, 3-hour long highlights programme of all the best action. You can, of course, already watch all of the live broadcasts from the show on that service. So if you want to watch it in its entirety, then you can do that. Monty asking, did I find any Nimrod footage? It's funny you say that, Monty, because the Woodford material that we watched at the outset is followed by a Nimrod display. And I thought, shall I leave that in there or shall I not? I haven't done, but I can probably go and throw that on at the end. It's a maritime aeroplane, isn't it? It's vaguely linked to the F-18. Let's stick it in there at the end if I manage that. The Blue Angels comment that I'd seen in the chat was that they are now flying the sort of early Super Hornets. So does the US Navy have any legacy aircraft? I think I heard that they were still using some for stuff. But or I read that they were still using, but then I read that in a book, and how old's that book? So there we go. And Angus saying, talking about sound quality. Yeah, so interesting you mentioned that, because all of this material, all nice stereo, location sound, hopefully, and even that, I didn't tweak it, but it needs a little bit of tweaking, that 92 stuff. It's all stereo audio, recorded back in those days with sort of real analog, dynamic mics that really do give a fairly good representation of the audio on the day. And it's impactful stuff when it's done right. And Gary saying you can't beat React Defo 120%, the best airshow in the world. I mean, it is up there, isn't it? It's wonderful from our point of view, capturing video, the sun's in the right place, and obviously the acts and the presentation of the flying displays. It really is up there. I'm hoping to get overseas and maybe explore a few other attempts at similarly sized events, and we'll see how that goes. We'd love to bring you some of that live. We've got then one more clip from Riyadh this year then. This one, the Spanish aircraft, just 4 minutes of this one. So no display team accompanying this one. It's the EF-18 of the Spanish Air Force.
Oh, here he goes for the takeoff, and it will be followed by a looping. So first maneuver after takeoff, a small loop in. Now after this beautiful reposition, he will follow with the minimum turn radius. And now he will give us the little Swiss cheese, a new maneuver prepared just for this air show. After this repo, we will see a slow pass, 85 knots, and a very demanding maneuver. Now he will come here to say hello to all of us. So just clap a little bit to Captain Daniel Carmona. So thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed this as much as me, and we will see this tomorrow afternoon again. Thank you very much, the Spanish Air Force.
Another nice display from Riyadh last year. As I say, that edit is going to be part of our 3-hour highlights program available on the streaming service in due course. Once I get all the titles finished off and the final polish done, the bulk of the edit work is now done. Yeah, all of the aircraft we've seen so far are sort of the legacy type, so the sort of first generation, although lots of upgrades, as the Canadian pilot mentioned. All of those aircraft sort of gradually upgraded to modern capabilities, but we haven't yet seen a Super Hornet, so we will play that in a moment, a Boeing demonstration at Farnborough in 2014, and we also went to the trouble of recording the display pilot's commentary about that routine, which I always find very interesting, some of the things they're thinking about, and yeah, their interpretation of their own display can often make you realise some of the difficulties, and certainly at Farnborough it's a very limited display area to play with for a fighter, dynamic fighter display, such as we'll see in a moment from the Boeing Super Hornet from 2014. Talking about Riyadh, we've played quite a bit from that show, and Angus asks, is there an aircraft you'd like to see and film at the show which you haven't seen for a long time or have never seen before? Well, the one that leapt to my mind, and it's only because today Northrop Grumman are unveiling their B-21 Raider. Now, wouldn't that be cool? Air Tattoo, potentially. Who knows? I don't know how public they're likely to be with the aircraft, but would be pretty cool to see that over here. gosh, next year, is that probably a bit too optimistic? Don't know. No idea. It'll be very interesting to see what kind of unveiling we see this afternoon. I'm trying to think what time that is actually. It might even be afternoon in America, so it's probably sort of late night here. Hey, we can all use Google, can't we? We'll find that out in a minute, maybe talk about it at the end. That Nimrod material has got me stumped, Monty. I will try and play you a little bit of that. 12th. Can't see the time that they're unveiling this new long-range strike aircraft. But yeah, that's happening today, so I'd love to see that data too. Anything else I'd like to see it? Yes, I mean, all sorts. There's certainly a lot of sort of for air forces further afield that you just feel like maybe we'll get to see at some point. You go to shows in Turkey and see the Pakistani JF-17 and things like that. So yeah, that'd be pretty cool to see up displaying in the same air as European fighters. There was one other that popped into my head as well. There's certainly lots of display teams, maybe the Indians or yeah, talked about the Blue Angels earlier. It'd be lovely to see those guys over here again. Someone talked about seeing them at Finningley in the early 90s. Well, oh, you're right. It's the 1st of December. Thank you, Canuck. It's tomorrow that the B-21's being unveiled, as you say. That would be pretty cool to see over here one day. Who knows? Right. So all been Legacy Hornets so far, and all been Air Force demonstrations, if you like. So the next clip is from the manufacturer. So Boeing bought out McDonnell Douglas, and yeah, the producer of the Super Hornet. So this aircraft operated now, Australia, Kuwait, and US Navy, to the Marines as well. Not sure, but yeah, not quite so many operators, but more capable aircraft. And certainly in the hands of the Boeing test pilot here, really putting on a stellar display.
Taking us through his F-18F Super Hornet display routine is display pilot Rick Wyatt Sealong.
Okay, at takeoff, a full afterburner takeoff on the go. At about 90 knots, I will rotate the aircraft, get it climbing safely away, raise the gear and flaps, and initiate a roll to over the display line where I begin my show. With a quick aileron roll demonstrating the excellent roll performance with a fully loaded combat load. Pulling about 7 G.
Sorry folks, bit of an annoying glitch there. Just bringing back that very nice Boeing video. Be with you very shortly. It's always nice when a program crashes for the first time ever whilst you're live. Always been a very reliable software in the past, but here we are. I'll scooch that through a bit to around about there.
At about 30 alpha. The aircraft is unlimited angle of attack capabilities, and but for show purposes we only go to 30 here, and the flight controls perform very nicely. I can fly it with just rudders, I can fly it with stick, or a combination of both, and it handles very smoothly, and you can see it just tracks nicely over the display line here. Okay, up we go here. I'll pull about 7.5 Gs in the pull-up. As I go up, I'll roll it on its back, come out of afterburner, and I'll stand it up about -1 G over the top, holding it level across the horizon. As I come on down, I'll point it directly, bullseye it right down to the ground, and then I'll initiate my recovery, plug it in the full afterburner, leveling it off, and then I'm going to set up for a loaded roll. So fully loaded with weapons. Not many airplanes can do this at all that I'm aware of. I'll do a loaded roll, get it out to about 25 alpha, then I go up to about 30 degrees angle of attack right there, load it up and pull the nose up, again showing the crowd the full plan form of the aircraft in the vertical, and then pushing it off, and I'll set up for my recovery to landing. Aircraft carrier approach landing, 3.5 degree glide slope, and about 700 to 800 foot per minute rate of descent. I'll plant it on the deck and demonstrate as if we were going to catch the wire on the boat. And we'll call this an OK3 wire trap right here, with a little bounce right there on the hump in the runway.
Yeah, a little bump on the runway there. Sorry about the interruption there. Hopefully you caught all of that Super Hornet display. Obviously the only that I can think of, the only Super Hornet display we've recorded, probably maybe at Farnborough for a couple of times, possibly Air Tattoo Super Hornet displaying there as well. I promised Monty, that's really all of the F-18 material I've prepped for us. A nice sort of spread, I hope, of material from over the years. I am just going to attempt something I probably shouldn't try and attempt, which is bringing in a bit of material from a network source to share with you, which is a Nimrod, because Monty asked for it. But John, if you've just joined, I can see you saying you're having a sneaky look on your lunch break. We are coming to the end, so you can get back to work very, very shortly. But I promised Monty a little bit of material from that 92 show. Now, doing this earlier is what caused that glitch. There it is. Okay, let's see if we can do this. This is great, entertaining TV for you, I realise. Set the in point. Yeah, nice bit of Nimrod material. We talked about sharing it last week at some point. And here we are. We'll finish on another bit of archive content, this from Woodford 1992. So thanks for tuning in. It's been interesting to see what sort of audience level there is during a daytime stream like this, weekday stream. Clearly most people at work, but I'm glad to see that not all of us are, and some of us can share some old airshow action of an afternoon. And thank you for joining. And Chris mentioning the wonderful Melvin Hiscock, who provided commentary on that Farnborough programme that we played a little bit of a moment ago. Sadly no longer with us, Melvin, much missed on the airshow circuit, and always a wonderful bloke to work with on our programmes. Right, shall we take a look at a nice bit of Nimrod material? I justified it on the basis that the F-18 and the Nimrod are sort of maritime aircraft, you know, and it's a nice display that we used to see a lot in the 90s, of course. All right, I'll probably sign off after that. Any questions for me or whatever, throw them in the chat, and any requests, who knows, for future streams. I'm trying to do these weekly on a Thursday, sort of around a theme generally, but try and make it fairly current and newsy when I can get my news correct. I'll repeat, as Angus points out in the chat, B-21 Raider not being announced today, but is being revealed tomorrow. So yeah, keep an eye on social media platforms for how they unveil this new long-range strategic bomber. Right, let's take a look back to Waddington 1992 again. A Nimrod display on an F-18 stream, why not?
Named after mythology's mighty hunter, the Nimrod is yet another product from the long line of military aircraft produced at this famous airfield. Developed as a Shackleton replacement and a contender for the NATO Maritime Patrol aircraft, the Nimrod design was based on the original de Havilland Comet airframe. The aircraft is capable of flying to its patrol area at speed, using all 4 engines, and then closing down to 2 engines whilst it monitors its operational patrol area. The aircraft has an unrefueled endurance of 12 hours and a maximum speed of approximately 580 miles an hour. During the 1982 Falklands War, the aircraft was fitted with air-to-air refuelling capability to increase its range. The modification program was carried out at Woodford, with the first Nimrod utilising the probe from our own Vulcan X-ray Mike 603. The conversion, including fitting, air testing and MOD approval, took only 17 days to achieve. Today's display aircraft comes from 120 Squadron based at RAF Kinloss near Inverness in Scotland. The aircraft is flown by Squadron Leader Bob Stewart and his crew, and they leave us now to display at RAF St Athan and RAF Honington. The Merlin-powered P-51 Mustang was the first fighter aircraft capable of escorting the huge...
Exciting little transition due to my interesting snafu earlier. Little glimpse of Rod Dean displaying a P-51, long-time airshow performer, both type and pilot there. That material from our Woodford 1992 programme. Thanks very much for tuning in. Angus asks, what will the theme be for the next one? Was thinking a good one could be solo jet displays over the years from past to present. I like it. I'm going to work with that. Thank you, Angus, for that input. It will likely be another 1 PM, 1 in the afternoon stream next week. I think if you'd like to keep tabs on that, I will try and send an email newsletter out tomorrow with the detail of that. You can sign up for that. There's a link in the description. And yes, nothing left to say, but thank you for tuning in. And cheerio, Chris. Nice to see you. And evenings midweek are better for John. John says, except YouTube tells me that my audience is generally online at this time of day. So good for them. You know, why not? So I'm just playing around at the moment, as you can tell, trying to get a bit of a routine going around live streams, and yeah, coming up with themes. Always grateful for those inputs, so thank you, Angus, for that. And if you'd like to make your own suggestion, sign up for the email newsletter. There's a link in the description, and you can reply to those. Comes directly to me, and yeah, get a bit of a conversation going, get some ideas going. It's cheating, really, crowdsourcing themes. And Angus saying, great stream as always. Yeah, lovely stuff. Okay. Sorry about the slight glitch in the middle there, but otherwise escaped pretty well. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Do give this video a like and share it to anyone you think might enjoy a little bit of F-18 action in the middle of their week. Thanks again. Bye bye.